basing it on data and facts versus a gut feel. A lot of sales organizations struggle with that. It's not the first question you ask, it's the second or third that gets down to what's really going on. Companies that get that like recruiting and sales are very related, do very well because they're like a lot of the same skill sets align.
Welcome back to Talent Hunters, where we explore insights and trends shaping the global recruiting and staffing industry. Want to build talented teams that drive your company toward big goals and big growth? Then this podcast is for you. And now, let's join the conversation with today's episode of Talent Hunters, brought to you by HireQuest. Connect with us at hirequest.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Vince Holt, and I'm the host of Talent Hunters. Today, we have Shad Tidler, a leading consultant coach with Lucian Incorporated and powered by Sandler Training, which is located in Indianapolis, Indiana. Professionally, Shad specializes in transforming and crafting scalable strategies that help business owners and sales leaders achieve their fullest potential. Welcome, Shad.
Thank you, Vince. Appreciate it.
So there's a whole bunch of things I'm excited to go into. First of all, to break the ice here, tell us a little bit about your background and really what got you to where you are with Lucian.
Okay. So Vince, I'd love to say that I had a path to get here that I knew, but I'd be completely lying to you if I did. If you look at my background, I was supposed to be an engineer by trade, mechanical engineer, and design cars and planes, and that worked out perfectly for where I'm at. So I grew up in Indiana, a little farm town called Tipton. Did undergrad at Purdue, thought I was going to be a mechanical engineer, got through year one and could have gone on. Grades were okay, but just went, that's not the life for me. And that had always been what I wanted to do. I was always a vision, go to Purdue, be an engineer. I came from an engineering family. So it's kind of like, what do I do now? This is completely wrecked. Like I had no other plans, like no other options. Not that I didn't have other options. I just hadn't ever thought of anything. And so I talked with my sister and she said, hey, I'd worked at a couple of restaurants in the town that I worked, growing up in high school. And she said, you're good at managing people, because I'd worked into management roles. She's like, why don't you go to the school of management over at Purdue Cranard and just see what they got? I'm like, okay. And so I ended up doing, it was an industrial engineering management role. But it was heavy on the industrial engineering, process, manufacturing, those things. So I get out of Purdue. Well, while I was at school, I had the benefit of doing a 6-month internship for Merck Pharmaceuticals out in the Philadelphia area. Loved it, loved living out on the East Coast. And I got into the world of logistics. Like it was a role where you were doing like actual scheduling of shipments and things if you think of things to make pharmaceuticals that they sell, or it might be finished product or vaccines that they do to ship to other Merck sites or to end customers. I was managing and scheduling and selecting vendors of that. So get out of school, end up actually overseas in India, in Bangalore, India for a year, doing tech consulting because I love to travel internationally. I was part of this organization that they did internships, and I thought it was 3 months, turned into a year with the startup. I got the benefit of coming back to the U.S. in February of 2001, which if you know anything about the tech market, that is literally the month that the tech market bottomed here in the U.S. Here I'm a 22-year-old kid. I don't have any other skill sets really. So I'm still trying to find a job in tech, which was, absolutely insane at that time. So I end up calling up my old boss at Merck and saying, I'm struggling. Is there anything I'd love to get back out of the East Coast? He's moving out of his role, end up getting back out there. So I spent another few years on the scheduling side, international, domestic operations. 27, young, single kid, decided to move up to New York City with a bunch of buddies of mine because I was spending every other weekend up there anyway. And literally one of my buddies' events is like, why don't you just get a job up here and come hang out? Like, we'll have fun. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense to me. Let's do that. And so I ended up getting on with the third-party logistics company. And this is how I'm getting to the sales piece. So hang in there with me. Third-party logistics company up that was headquartered out of Europe, but their North America headquarters was in New York City. I took an inside sales role. So if you think of these large, let's say like a company like Procter and Gamble or Merck, right? Large, all their transportation worldwide, they put in these huge spreadsheets and they go, give us all the pricing for these and break it down. And then here's this massive document that we need your feedback and answers on how you'd approach. And then it's this long, convoluted, very drawn out decision process with a lot of people, a lot of steps. And not much real, like, clarity on how it happens. So an outside sales guy for this company that I worked for, Kuehne would bring it in. And then I was on the team that helped put all this together, package all their response, and then would go help them sell and close the deal, hopefully. Right. And so that was kind of my first taste of sales. And I would go with the sales guys and I would present on parts of it or help sell on parts. And was getting pretty good. And then you go with enough outside sales guys, you kind of figure out who's good, who isn't, what works, what doesn't. Right. And so I started getting more interested in sales while I'm with them for, 2004, about 6 or so years up there. And I decided I want to move back to Indiana, where my family's from, back to the Indianapolis area. But I want to get into outside sales. So I got lucky. They had an open outside sales role at the branch there in Indianapolis. My first outside sales role, I didn't know what I was doing. They had like a week or so of onboarding, which was more training on our services and our products, which I already knew because of 6 years of having done this inside sales role. And there was very little on sales training. And it was just like just go. Like literally my onboarding was day one. I came into the branch office, small branch office, 7 people, branch manager. I was the sales guy, operations director, operations team, some warehouse folks. That's it. He sat me down. My desk was right by the operations people, this wood desk. He has this stack of manila folders with papers going everywhere, like this tall, laptops on top of it. And he throws on my desk at 8 a.m. on Monday, first day, and goes, "Go to it. I'll see you for lunch." And that was onboarding. So it was just a lot of trial and error, and a lot more error than trial that worked. But luckily I had a lot of, these sales guys I'd worked with before. I was calling them up and like, how do I do this? What do I do here? I did a Dale Carnegie course that kind of helped me put together. It's like an 8-week course to help me put together just a basic sales process. Cause I was like, I need something. Like, I don't know why I'm winging it every time. We call it here a wing it star, right? Like I would sometimes work, sometimes when I couldn't repeat or be able to analyze and figure out, well, why isn't it working? What do I need to do? So this gave me a process, but it was a very general process and it wasn't tailored to me and to my situation and the industry and what I run into. So after I did that, I'm having a little more success, but I'm still going, I could really, really be good if I knew what I was doing. About that time, I'm switching to a smaller, medium-sized third-party logistics company called Panther Expedited. They hired me as their outside sales guy for all of Indiana. And about that time, I went, okay, I need some more help. And there wasn't a whole lot of help from a training standpoint there. So I think I just searched online for sales training and coaching in Indianapolis. Lucian, where I work at, came up, and I got on their blog and their website, and they had blogs, and I started reading their newsletter, and I was like, this stuff's making sense. Like that's me. Like they're describing, those are the things I'm running into. This is making sense. So part of our strategy to get new clients at that time was we would host, we call them an executive briefing, but think it was like a kind of a 2-hour free test, right? Come in, you're in a room with other salespeople, business owners, and somebody, for a couple hours, like helps kind of work through problems, coach you. And then you can, if you'd like, you can meet with them and talk about getting their help and what that looks like. So I went in, Aaron, who's the president of our company, he was the one that ran the session. And I just remember walking away very impressed because he challenged me on a lot of things. One of the questions I'll never forget, he asked, he goes, well, how often do you follow up with your customers? Now, mind you, I hadn't been a sales guy for very long, right? So I was like, weekly, I'm calling them weekly. And he goes, well, is that what is really good for them? Or is that what they need? Like, how often did you agree? And I'm like, I never thought of it. Like, I should just agree with them or like figure out what the frequency is they need. Or like, we have a reason why we're talking. I'm just calling them to call because I think that's what I should do. And he goes, well, what if you agreed with them and then you could better manage your time because you're not spending time chasing them to have the conversations, or, you're just having conversations to have them versus there's actually a point of it. I remember that stuck out. So I contacted him. I became a client. I was a client for about 3.5 years. And fast forward, we're now into 2014. I'd been in the logistics world between internship and after college, 15-ish years then. And I was just ready to get out. I was just ready to do a different industry. I enjoyed the international parts of it because I love to travel. My wife's from the Philippines. I love traveling internationally, but I didn't enjoy getting calls at 3 a.m. from Asia, right? Or waking up to 100 emails from overseas. The constant go and the 24/7. I mean, I remember sitting at a Starbucks in downtown Indianapolis on July 4th night with the girl I was dating at the time because I was on the phone handling a shipment that had gone awry, right? And I was like, okay, I need to do something different. And I didn't know what it was, but I knew this. I like sales still. I found it very intriguing, and I was like, I haven't touched. I loved being the fact I could kind of control my own destiny from income, from like what I wanted to do, things like that. I love working with lots of different types of clients and learning about them. And when I worked at Panther, I had some inside sales guys prospecting for me, and I was just using what I learned at Lucian and coaching them, and they were getting really good and doing real well, and I loved that aspect. So I was like, how can I combine all these? And I never thought of like the training coach I was getting, like, what if I became a trainer coach here? Right. And I did this. And so I'm at one of our classes on a Wednesday in 2014. And Aaron, like my coach who's the president here, looks at me and goes, hey, you haven't been to classes as regularly, like everything okay. And I just look at him and go, I think I'm ready to do something different. And he goes, why don't you come work for us? Now, what I didn't see, because I was so mired in getting out of the logistics world, is that he had been slowly recruiting me over about a year or so. Like I thought back events later to all the conversations we'd had where I was asking about how he did this. He'd ask me about like my future plans. Didn't see it, right? Like fish doesn't know it's in water till you pull it out of the water, right? And so I thought he was kidding, but I couldn't get the thought out of my head all night. So I called him the next morning. I said, "Were you serious?" And he goes, "Yep." Went through the interview process, and that was 2014. I've been doing it ever since.
Wow, the student becomes a teacher.
Yeah, but if you see, like I said, I told you it's not from where you think, because I started off, I was going to be an engineer. That's what I was going to do.
So coming from engineering science into sales, coaching, consulting, how have your analytical skills influenced your approach to sales training?
Yeah, great question. So what's helped is, my personality and its engineering background, logistics background, very process, very, analytic detail, looking at facts and figures versus just guts and, gut and emotion and intuition. That has helped in a lot of times working with clients where we've just been kind of winging it, right? We've kind of been going like, hey, when things are really good, all good. Hey, when things aren't, all of a sudden we've got to tighten down, but we don't know what to do and how to do it. So for example, one of the things we hear over time, and I've heard a lot in my 11 years here from owners, presidents, CEOs, sales leaders, is my people just need to be better at handling objections. Well, yes, they can be better at, like what to do in those situations, not freak out, right? Not just go into justify, explain, but be able to ask questions, understand, really uncover what's the real concern or problem behind the objection. Like what's they're really concerned about? Can we address that, versus just jumping and reacting? But even more important to that is, how did the fire get started in the first place? And what can we do to change so the fire doesn't happen going forward? It's hey, well, yeah, we can handle the ejection, but if we go back and go, what do we need to do different in the process so that we can either address that and mitigate that objection or eliminate it from ever happening in the first place? So by the time you get ready to close, you've already handled it. And now it's just, hey, let's talk through this meeting, everything that you talked about, and here's your decision, what you need to do. Right. And so that's where the process analytical side of me has helped, is that, to me, that's so interesting all the time. It's like, okay, if this is the outcome we got to, or the objection we're having, right, or the problem we're running into, how did we get here? Right. And being able to map backwards and see, oh, well, it's because we didn't act, if they said we're going to think it over, or, we've got our priorities. Well, did we establish that there's truly a compelling reason for them to even make a change and to get your help, and that they're committed to doing it all the way back here? Right? Did we even talk about and align on expectations of when we get ready to make a decision, what does it look like? And, being clear with each other about what we want to do, right? That's the analytical part that I love. The analytical part loves looking at numbers and going, okay, hey, if your goal is $1 million that you need to accomplish, well, yeah, I can just go out there and go after it. Or I can go, okay, let's break it down and work it back using math to what do you need to do daily, prospecting wise, like, and what techniques and tools and things can we use that? how many conversations with decision makers should I result in, how many meetings should I result in, how many opportunities, quotes, proposals, or whatever it is, it should result in. And then based on our close rate, what should we be closing in order to be able to reach that goal? And then tracking to that to go, okay, are we on track? Do we need to adjust? Maybe reality is starting to show that we need to adjust something, or hey, we're doing a lot of prospecting attempts. We're getting to a lot of conversations with decision makers, but we're not getting meetings. So what's happening in there? Where's the breakdown? Right. And being able to analyze that and go, that's where that, if we adjust that and help you there and get better there, we're going to get more effective results on the back end.
So here's the challenge I throw out to you. With technology today, what I'm finding is salespeople are looking, and I think this is probably since the pandemic, it's really surfaced a lot. More people are looking at social network, digital, everything else to make their sales contacts, to promote their sales contacts and so forth. What systems do you push or teach, rely on in starting and sustaining business growth?
You talking from just the front end on the prospecting or overall?
All through it, because when we're in the prospecting stage, I feel we've lost touch with how to build a relationship. We've gone digital. But then I'm anxious to hear, once you make that introduction or start, what systems do you teach for sustaining company growth?
So I'm going to talk about the backbone behind things and then some of the technology and tools that help you through it. Because you're absolutely right. You can have all the greatest tools, but if you can't build rapport and trust with people early, if you can't connect with them early, if you can't ask compelling questions to uncover reasons they would even want help and make a change, if you can't have the skill sets to sell value over price, right? To be able to, to qualify an opportunity to close, to make next, if you can't do that, then you can have the best tools and digital technology in the world. It ain't going to matter. Right. So, from a front end side or from the backbone side the first is we got to determine, okay, before we go out and figure out which tools we're going to use and plug in to help us along the way, we got to first understand, okay, what skills and strengths are there with our people, what's missing. If you think from a selling standpoint, okay, what skills and strengths do we have to be able to go out and hunt effectively and even get conversations started, to build trust, early, not just, hey, they like talking to you because you seem like a cool person, you got a good personality, but like they actually trust you're there to help versus trying to just sell them something. What skills and strengths do you have to consultatively sell and uncover compelling reasons that are they committed? Be able to sell value or price, right? So first thing is let's analyze that and understand what to even help your people on, whether it's more behavior we need to do, whether it's in the technique of things they're doing in process, whether it's a mindset piece, right? Like, hey, you can give all the best tools and process, but if their brain's going, I can't cold call people because I'm going to interrupt them. They're going to hate me. Like something bad's going to happen. They're not going to use the tool. So first, let's analyze that and understand what's there, what's missing. Let's look at your sales process. What's there, what's missing, what's working already, what isn't that's causing some of the outcomes. Let's look at, what tools you have in place that are helping what's missing, right? So we use a sales specific evaluation tool through Objective Management Group to help us understand a lot of that at the start. Our methodology is let's crawl before we walk and run, right? Crawl being, let's understand really what's going on, what's missing. Where the fire, okay, now let's start to map out and fix that process. Because even if you've got all the greatest tools in the world, if your people don't know, here's what I should be doing, and we're training and helping them from a technique standpoint get better, doesn't matter. They can use the same tools over and over again in a poor way, right? And you're going to get really, really bad results. So let's fix and map that process and then, train people on. Let's work on their skill sets to be able to do those things. Now, from a technology standpoint, it's like, okay, let's take the front end. I'm a firm believer in you got to reach out in a lot of different ways. Cold calling, you got cold emails, but using things, tools that, whether it be HubSpot, et cetera, where you can automate some of your email, cadences using video. Video has helped immensely, whether it's on LinkedIn messages or emails, right? And using video so people feel a personal touch and it stands out versus the competition. Going to networking events and meeting people, at places, those decision makers at places where they're going on a regular basis. One of the things we do in our some of our prospecting events, in our work, talks. I give talks for different associations and groups. Probably other right, that's an opportunity to potentially get in front of people. But let's have a lot of different things we're doing to get in front of people. But it's because we've also got, we know what process we should be taking. Like, what do we want to accomplish in those conversations? We've trained on the skills and tools. Now, once you get into the process, like, okay, you got a meeting set. We personally use HubSpot as our CRM. There's a lot of great CRMs out there. I always tell people the way to figure out what to use is for your team, your organization, is what do you want it to accomplish and do first. So that'll help you determine also the size of your business. Like, I see a lot of businesses use Salesforce, great tool, but if you're not an enterprise-based system, or group with a lot of different working parts, Salesforce is going to be too big for most organizations. Other ones, like I said, we use HubSpot because we do a lot of digital marketing along with their CRM, and it's very intuitive. I have clients using Pipedrive. Where I got some clients that are specific in their world, but having a good CRM now with that is not only it can capture information and data like on meetings, things like that, right? Contacts, but also has a good pipeline function tool that you've lined up to the sales process, right? So here's a big thing I see, from that standpoint, technology is we have a CRM, it's got a pipeline tool. Well, it's based on percentages and guts, right? Like my gut feeling is this versus aligned with the sales process. And if it's in a certain stage of the pipeline, it's because we've had a conversation, we've clarified this has happened, basing it on data and facts versus a gut feel. I see a lot of sales organizations struggle with that. And then what happens with the sales leaders is, well, this deal's at 75% to close. It should close in the next month, but it's not closing. Well, because that's a gut feel. Somebody goes, oh, I feel like it's at 75%, but I can't define what's happened or not happened, that it should be in that position. If you got your pipeline lined up with your CRM, everybody understands, hey, if it's in this stage of the pipeline, it's because we've had these conversations, these things have happened, we've qualified it, and that's why it's moving over here. Then it starts to become more predictable.
As you were talking, I'm trying to plug in the different industries. Obviously, you're not just in one industry, you're across the country in different industries. You're consulting, you must have something that you fall back on that is universal, because I would think you would get caught up in learning about a specific industry to be effective. So what is that tool that you fall back on to help you focus on the industry you're wanting to talk to or planning to talk to?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of uniqueness, obviously, in every industries, but there's a lot of commonality. So for me, it's the kind of the tool is understanding them from 4 different aspects. And this is any industry, and there's going to be nuance within it, but the 4 aspects is understanding their sales strategy. What is it? Where are they solid there? If from a sales strategy standpoint, do they actually have goals that are clarified? I talked to a prospect this morning. They're like, yeah, we need to get some goals for our salespeople. Multi-million-dollar, very successful company. No goals for their salespeople yet, right? They're also having problems with accountability because people don't know what it should even be accountable to, right? But, things like goals. What are our overall goals for the company and why? What's our strategies for going for acquiring new opportunities in business versus growing with existing? What sort of market shares are we going after? What does our ideal client profile look like? Understanding what's there, what's missing. Secondary is structure, sales process. What does that look like? What outcomes and problems are they having, right? What objections are they getting? Well, probably is related to something that's either missing or not in the right place or shouldn't be in the sales process. Understand, okay, if we do have goals for our people, like I explained earlier from the analytical side, do we have it broken down so people know exactly what they need to do, what we're tracking and measuring? so they know if they're being successful or not. And we have a structure of where we're regularly reviewing it with them and helping them figure out how to be more effective. Are they on track? Where they need to readjust? Even within structure is a sales hiring process and onboarding process. Do we have a strong process? Do we even have one when we have to hire? What are the triggers to hire? What are the tools we're using to evaluate? Are they strong salespeople? Are they strong in our selling environment? And are they a good cultural fit? Let's say you find a great salesperson. What does onboarding look like so they can be successful? So it's not like the onboarding I went through in my first sales role where it's like, here, just go to it. But it's an actual plan over the first couple of months to get them ramped up and be effective so they're producing quicker. Third area is staff. Evaluating, the tools I mentioned, the evaluation of the team, understand what skills are there, what's missing from a sales standpoint, from a sales management, sales leadership, strategy and structure. So we go, let's know what to work on. And then finally, as skills, what's the skills and tools that we need to put in place in order to help them improve in all these areas so they're more effective in their sales process so they can accomplish that strategy. So those 4 areas, that's my tool. It's not hey, this particular digital tool or technology tool, but it's those 4 areas, analyzing those and understanding. That's my tool that helps, no matter what industry we're talking about.
I love it. I love it. I'm a firm believer that it's very rare to find a hiring authority, whether it's human resources management or whatever, that really knows how to interview. It's also very rare that you can find a candidate that knows how to interview. So when you just talked about onboarding and so forth, I find once you find the weakness, you're only as strong as your weakest link. In upgrading the onboarding program, the teaching of how to identify a solution, whether it's a candidate or a hiring authority, how to identify a solution is the key. First, you got to understand what you're trying to solve. And then you've got to be able to directly ask those questions of the capabilities of, if you're a candidate, the company, can they solve what you're missing today? If it's a candidate, can this person come in and upgrade what we have today? Agreed?
Yep. Agreed.
So how do you coach, because we're going to have a big audience out there of recruiters, what do you teach recruiters on how to coach employers and candidates on how to interview?
Okay. Yeah, more mine's from the employer side, right? I help out a little bit on the candidate side with some of my clients in the staffing recruiting world. On the client side, the big things is first, let's have a structured process and set of questions for the interview. Let's not just wing it, show up, wing it, and ask whatever's on our mind. First off, from EEOC standards, if you're not being consistent, you're leaving yourself open for a lot of potential things if somebody's come back and claim something against you. So you want to have a standard process of questions, standard set of questions. You want to have a standard scoring process. But even in that, within those questions, it's not the first question you ask, it's the second or third that gets down to what's really going on. A lot of people have been taught what are the right things to say in an interview, right? Like, hey, if they ask about this, I'm thinking from a sales side, if they ask about, how I've grown my territory, I'm going to throw out some big numbers, right? Like I've grown it 200% year over year. And, let's say you're really looking for people who are like new salespeople who are going to really grow your business. Like you hear that, you're like, oh my God, that's great. We need that. I mean, that's not what we have right now. But okay, 200% every year. What are those actual numbers? Right? What number, like, what does that actually mean? Okay, how did you do that? Right? Okay, if you were given all the best accounts in your current role and you just literally showed up and was like, hey, you got anything else, right? Or I'm here, and they threw more business at you. And you as the client, you need a true hunter, like somebody who's actually going to go out and knock on cold doors, right? Get people, who don't want to talk to them, or maybe already have somebody, or there's competition, to actually listen and talk, get to decision makers. This person who was just handed a bunch of really good accounts that the company already had, and they just showed up and kind of things grew, is not your person, right? So being able to really ask second or third level questions, get down to what really has happened, right? Even being able to look at someone's resume and what they got listed there is really go, okay, let's clarify what you got listed there. Like says you're a really, really great, you're really, really great at building trust and relationships. Give me specific examples. Like, how do you even go about doing that? Right? What do you do in these types of situations? That's one of the things that we teach a lot of our clients to do in interviews is to role play with the candidate. So you be yourself, or your prospective client or client in your industry, they be themselves, and you give them like the objections your folks get, and let's see how they can handle it. Because if you ask somebody and go, hey, Vince, how do you handle this? Most people have watched, they've been around for a while, watched a great blog, video, or listened to, a podcast, or read a blog or a book, tells them how to handle it. Doesn't mean they actually can go out and do it. When you put somebody into a role play situation, then they now have to demonstrate, and they will go back to whatever it is they naturally do. I always tell the client, I don't care if they don't have to know your industry inside and out and specifics, but can they handle the situation, right? If you throw this objection, can they ask questions and try to uncover what's the real concern you have? Can they try to sell on value versus just price, right? Are they calm throughout it versus like they get emotional and react? Right? Are they trying to reach, to get you a solution that's going to help meet whatever that underlying concern is that you have? Right. So that's from a client side, teaching them how to do that, which I found is a lot of times eye-opening, because they're like, they would have said that answer and I would have totally just gone with it. Right. That they, if I didn't make them role play, like they would have probably just logically answered how they'd handle it, I assume. And then like we get them in, they don't know how to actually do it. Difference between knowledge and application. Right. A lot of times when I worked with recruiters, it's helping them. Same thing with candidates is, okay, hey, let's prep for what questions they may ask you, and let's make sure we've got good, solid answers versus we're just giving a general answer. Let's make sure we can answer in a way that you can follow. So like I help my clients interview for sales roles. I mean, in a first 15-minute Zoom interview, which is generally a first step, and you ask them a question like, how does your background match up with the job description or the ad? If it's 8 minutes later and I have no idea what the heck you're talking about, I'm not passing you along to the next, interview. But being able to answer concisely, connect the dots, things like that, being able to ask good questions. I just helped a client of mine into a final interview with a candidate last week. And he was asking great questions that showed not only his industry knowledge, but really wanting to understand how they operate their business. And then he was going, okay, hey, from my background in this industry, here's some things that might help you in that area. Like we all walked away thoroughly impressed, because I was like, this guy, not only did he want to understand and ask really good questions, really understand what challenges you're running into and where things are, but he was able to connect the dots concisely and go, here's how we can, how I could help with solving that.
So I love where this is going, because it's, hey, look, I've got 40 years of being a recruiter. Okay. And recruiter is the purest of sales that there is.
Companies that get that like recruiting and sales are very related, do very well, because they're like a lot of the same skill sets align. But go ahead. Well,
the thing that I have was taught very 100 years ago. Okay. Actually, you've got to find out what you're selling to. The candidate's selling, the hiring authority's selling. What you just described, the majority of your work is coaching your clients. Believe it or not, they're all candidates.
It's a great way to put it. I never looked at it from that angle, but absolutely.
It's true. And so what you're doing without realizing it is you are coaching clients, you are coaching candidates. They're just not a candidate today.
That's fair.
And what's fun,
never looked at that. Yeah.
When you simplify this, okay? When you simplify this, there's no difference. When you go into an interview, the company is selling their company, the candidate is selling the candidate, but nobody recognizes themselves as a salesperson in that situation. They both recognize themselves as buyers.
Very true. Yeah.
And the one thing to find out, this is just my experience, and you've got better training than I do. I get it. But the one thing that I learned was, in order to sell, you got to understand what they need to buy and why.
Absolutely.
In order to sell to a candidate, you got to do the same thing. And you cover that, but break it down to simplicity, because I'm an old guy, okay? And the more words that come into a sales, the more I'm going, you know what? You don't even know which car I want to buy.
Yeah, no, you bring up a great point, is why. A lot of people are like, okay, here's what you want. Let me try to connect the dots for you, right? Or how we can help. But why? And that goes back to what I was talking in the sales process, is what's the compelling reason that someone would make a change or buy from you? And when I find most sales deals stall out, Ben's just looking at it purely from a sales side, it's, well, number one, we're not in front of the right people to make a decision.
Bingo.
So we're not in front of the people that this is most important to make a decision. Number two, there's not a compelling reason that they would make a change, right? This is a nice to have. Oh, that would be great, but it's not a priority. It's not a must have. And number three, they're not committed to making that change. Like, just, I always say, like, this is, I've got a big family. I love them. We host holidays at our house. We build our house so we could do that. I've got family members that they complain about the same thing again and again at different holidays. I'll listen once or twice, but my wife will tell you about that third time, I'm going to walk away, because especially if I get any advice, you haven't done anything with it, just because you got a problem doesn't mean you're committed to fixing it, right? Same thing as, is getting people to understand from selling is, just because somebody shares they got a problem with how they're doing things now, think from staffing recruiting, is how they're recruiting and, hiring and onboarding people now and turnover, doesn't mean that they're going, we're committed to doing something. This is a priority. And if it's not there, you can't create that. Like, they either say it is a priority and we're going to put the effort and energy, and then it's a matter of determining, are you the right fit for it or not? But if it's not a priority and they're not committed at the first, you're wasting your time.
It's absolutely true. I want to personalize this just a little bit before we bring this to a close. Triathlete.
Mm-hmm.
Training, competing. What do you take from being an accomplished triathlete? Because look, the way I look at a triathlete, there isn't a wannabe. There isn't you're committed.
Yeah. Well, especially I did up to Ironman, like that. You're definitely committed when you're doing that. Yeah.
Exactly. So, yeah. I mean, it's not like it's a sprint. It's not like it's something that's going to be over quickly. It's something that you're into. And you've done this a lot. So what do you personally drag from being that athlete to being successful at your coaching and
a couple things. Discipline is the first one. We always said this. I've been on a lot of triathlon teams over time. I started in 2005. I've pulled back a little in the last few years, but it worked up over time. And when I got up to half Ironman and Ironman distance, one of the things that it was a joke, but there was truth in it, is like you can BS your way through a sprint, a short, small one, even through an Olympic if you're a pretty good athlete, right? Like, mile swim, 25-mile bike, 6-mile run. If you're a pretty good athlete and somewhat training, you can get through. You start getting into half Ironman, especially Ironman, you can't BS your way anymore. So you got to be disciplined. You got to have a game plan. Coaching. I had a coach all the way through my Ironman. That's been there, that's helped you, that can help you get ahead of problems, help you stay consistent, accountable. Having a team helped immensely, right? But you got to be disciplined and go out and put the work in every day. Now, that might mean there's certain days that your body just hasn't got it. Okay, this is a long haul. Let's get our reps. Let's get back onto it and pick back up, right? But you also got to go, okay, what do I need to accomplish today? Like, if I'm getting on the bike, how many miles do I get on the bike? What sort of cadence do I need to be at? Where do I need to have my heart rate? What's my nutrition need to look like? What am I trying to accomplish in this workout? And how does that add up to the big picture? And do I have checkpoints along the way? Right. And the discipline and the commitment to go out and get it done. When I was doing Ironman, I was still working a full-time job training in 2014. I remember a night I got home and I was like, I need to get in a 20-some mile run. It was 6:00 at night. I'm limited downtown Indianapolis. 9:30 at night, I'm running around downtown Indianapolis getting my run in. I had to get it in. Discipline meant when I went to, on the weekends when I would do the long bikes, I was doing the races down in Louisville. It's about 2 hours from Indianapolis. I'd be up at 4:00, getting ready, loading stuff in the car, get my breakfast, 2-hour drive down there, get on the bike by 7:00-ish, train for 6 hours on the bike, maybe do a couple-hour run, grab something to eat real quick down there, come back, go to bed, get up the next day, 3-hour run. That was my life for about 3 to 4 months in the later stages. Like I had to commit and go, I'm going to do it. So that discipline commitment, the other piece of it that's really been beneficial is to understand resilience and that you're in it for the long haul. You can have a bad day here or there. It's not the end of the world. Right. Also, it taught me, that a lot of the stuff I deal with in sales, my own, like we sell our own stuff, we're building our business, coaching our clients is resilience. Like if I can go out there and tough it, especially, on race day when it's late and it's hot. And I mean, the day I did my race, it was 100 and something outside. Right. And at 4:00, I was ready to be done. I still got the marathon in front of me. Resilience is I'm going to get up. And even though I'm not like everything's hard right now, I'm not feeling, I'm going to take that one more step. You think of it in sales, it's it's been a rough month. I've got a bunch of no's. I'm going to still grab that phone, pick it up again. I'm going to go to that next meeting, right? I'm going to have that next conversation and trusting if you're doing all the right stuff, the success will come with it.
Thank you for tying those together.
Yeah.
Shad, I really want to thank you very, very much for taking the time today. This has been fun. It really has.
Me too.
It's being able to tie your, I call it a hobby, okay, to the profession, I think is imperative because your hobby is just not something casual. Your hobby is a commitment. It is a dedication, and you have to hold yourself accountable. Well, that's sales. I mean, if you don't have those 3 measurements, you're done before you ever started. So truly, Shad, I appreciate you taking the time to come out here, and I look forward to seeing you in the results.
Sounds great, Vince. Thanks for having me on, and I really appreciate great questions today.